Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to break down a topic that's multifaceted and, let's be honest, often really misunderstood: human sexuality. Okay, so let's just dive right in. We hear these words all the time, right? Sex, gender, attraction. A lot of us even use them interchangeably. But what's really the difference? And, this is more than just about getting the words right. One source we looked at points out that when we're confused about these concepts, it can actually lead to real harm and misunderstanding. So yeah, getting these definitions clear, super important. So to really get our heads around this, to see the whole picture, we're going to look at it from a few different angles. Think of it like putting on 3 different pairs of glasses. We're going to use a social lens, a biological lens, and yeah, even an evolutionary one. All right, let's start with that social lens first. This is all about the words, the ideas, the concepts we use to define ourselves and, how we relate to everyone around us. First up, let's talk about sex. Now, this term is all about our biological and physiological characteristics. Chromosomes, hormones, reproductive organs. It's what a doctor might assign at birth. It's a pretty good analogy to think of it as the body's physical hardware. Okay, so if sex is the hardware, then you can think of gender as the social software that runs on it. See, this isn't about biology. It's about the roles, the behaviors, and all the expectations a particular society links to being masculine or feminine. Stuff like what clothes you wear, your hairstyle, or even what emotions you're supposed to show. And that, naturally, brings us to gender identity. Now, this one is completely internal. It's your own personal, deeply felt sense of your gender, and it doesn't matter what hardware you were born with. For a lot of people, this internal sense lines up with the sex they were assigned at birth, and that's what cisgender means. For others, it's different, and that's what transgender means. And then, totally separate from all of that, we have sexual orientation. This is, simply put, who you're attracted to, emotionally, romantically, sexually. It's probably best not to think of this as just a few neat little boxes, but more like a broad and fluid spectrum. So what's the big takeaway here? It's that none of this stuff, not your identity, not your orientation, it's not just a simple choice you make one day. It all comes from this really complex mix of our genetics, our hormones, our life experiences, and of course, the culture we grow up in. Okay, ready to switch lenses? Let's pop on our biological glasses now. We're going to zoom in a bit here and look at how even a simple misunderstanding of basic anatomy can cause a whole lot of confusion. It's pretty wild. Our sources point out this one anatomical error that a ton of people make, and you might not even realize it. And look, this isn't just about being nitpicky. Using the wrong words here can cause real confusion, especially when we're trying to talk about our health. All right, let's clear this up once and for all. The vagina, that's the internal muscular canal, the birth canal. The vulva, that's everything on the outside, all the parts you can actually see. So why does this matter? Well, because using the right terms is absolutely essential if we want to talk clearly and accurately about our own bodies and our health. It's just that simple. And it's a truly amazing multifunctional organ. It plays the central role in sexual intercourse, in childbirth, and in menstruation. Our sources also point out its fascinating ability to self-lubricate, which is pretty incredible when you think about it. Okay, on to our third and final lens, the evolutionary one. This perspective tries to tackle a really fundamental question. Why do we find certain physical traits attractive in the first place? So, if you're looking at this from an evolutionary psychology perspective, what we find attractive isn't just random. The whole theory is that our brains are, on a subconscious level, searching for visual cues, little clues that signal good health and, well, the potential to reproduce successfully. So for years and years, the big theory was all about something called the waist-to-hip ratio, or WHR. The idea was pretty simple. A lower ratio, what you might call a curvaceous figure, was thought to be the key evolutionary signal for fertility. But, science is always changing, and some newer research is telling a bit of a different story. Yeah, it turns out that body mass index, or BMI, which is a more general measure of body fat and overall health, is actually a much stronger predictor of what people find attractive than just the waist-to-hip ratio alone. So what does that suggest? Well, that our brains might be wired to look for signals of overall health, not just one very specific body shape. Okay, deep breath. We've looked through all 3 of our lenses. So now let's bring them all into focus and see the full integrated picture of human sexuality. So, what have we seen? We've seen how our social world gives us the language for identity. We've seen how our biology dictates the function of our bodies. And we've seen how our deep, deep evolutionary history might still be influencing who we're drawn to. You see? Each lens gives us another vital piece of this huge puzzle. And all of this brings us right back to the human side of things. I mean, this isn't just some abstract academic topic. As one of our sources puts it so powerfully, a lack of knowledge can perpetuate real, actual suffering. And that makes having clarity on this, well, it's not just helpful, it's absolutely essential for building a more empathetic and understanding world. So, after all that, what's the big takeaway? The bottom line is this. Understanding these different layers, sex, gender, anatomy, attraction, it gives us better tools. Tools to understand ourselves a little better, tools to talk accurately about our health, and tools to appreciate the incredible, amazing diversity of human experience with a lot more respect and a lot more clarity.